Hello, and welcome to this episode of Security Square, our cybersecurity focused series where we feature analyst insights, expert guests, and we cover some of the latest news and happenings across the security sector. I'm your host, Shelly Kramer, principal analyst here at Kramer&Co. And today, our conversation is going to focus on data. One of my favorite. I'm a nerd. I've been a nerd all my life, and I love data in a really crazy way. So let me back up and set the stage a little bit. So across industries, data resilience is really being redefined. We've got the explosion of AI workloads, a surge in ransomware sophistication, and the growing urgency around trustworthy data pipelines that are all forcing enterprises to really rethink how they manage, protect, and activate their data. The reality is that most organizations are still operating with fragmented systems and reactive security postures, I'm sorry to say. And these are approaches that simply can't keep up with the pace of AI innovation or evolving cyber threats. But a new vision is emerging, and it is one that treats data not as something to protect, but as something to prepare, to activate, and to leverage. So today, I'm so thrilled. I'm joined by Vidya Shankaran, who's the field CTO for cloud security and emerging technology at Commvault. And we're going to talk today about how enterprises are navigating this shift, the technologies that are shaping this next era of resilience and AI, and then what it takes to transform data from a liability into an intelligent asset. Vidya, welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Shelly. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I cannot wait to dig into this conversation. I know that you're going to share some really interesting insights. So before we get started, before we really get into the nerdy stuff, I would love it if you would walk me through a little bit of your career backstory.
Sure, happy to. And I'm happy to say that I'm also another data nerd that you have on the show today.
I kind of knew that.
Thank you for having me again, Shelly. But to give you a quick background to who I am and how my career has shaped the way I view things, I've been with Commvault for about 10 years. I'm actually coming up on my 10th year anniversary very soon. And I have been around the IT block for 20 years. So I want to say that I started my career as an AS400 application developer. I know I'm dating myself here, but that was I would say the golden era in a lot of ways because cybersecurity wasn't such a large looming threat. Yes, errors and mistakes were commonplace, but it wasn't as dire as situation is today. But then I would say over the past 20 years, we've seen massive evolutions in the way IT has kind of seen a move forward in leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
And I would say a lot of my career spanning the past 2 decades has been multicultural, pan global. So that also kind of has a significant impact on the way I view security in itself because definitely technology is a core element of a lot of these things, but there's the people aspect that tends to be kind of overlooked or not really given the much TLC that it deserves in my view. But I'm sure there's a lot of goodness in the three core pillars around cybersecurity, which we always talk about, which is people, processes, and technology.
Right.
And a lot of my conversations I would say in the past couple of years alone, have definitely seen a massive shift, in terms of AI adoption, AI, responsible AI implementations, and so on and so forth. So long story short, I think I've seen the golden era where cyber wasn't so front and center to now where every decision making process has that embedded underneath.
Yes, absolutely. Security is a foundational part of everything that we do. It is, like you, I've been around for a long time, and it is, it's so hard to explain to a generation who hasn't walked this path, but to have, I remember the early days of the internet, and when the only thing that we used the internet for was email and to write Word documents.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I wasn't a developer, so that wasn't how I was using the internet. And really how when cloud became a thing, and we all started working to educate about the importance of digital transformation and help clients on those journeys and those sorts of things. So it's kind of this next evolution of technology that we're living through, and it's so exciting and terrifying at the same time.
It is. Sure is.
So, Vidya, it's been a big few weeks for Commvault. You've got the launch of conversational AI, bringing natural language interaction into data protection and cyber recovery, which is super exciting. And then you've got the introduction of data rooms, which are designed to unlock the hidden value of backup data for AI and analytics. And if you put these together, these announcements represent really a pretty major evolution of what enterprise resilience can look like. Talk with me, if you would, a little bit about, what was the vision behind introducing these capabilities now, and how do they fit into Commvault's broader strategy to help organizations thrive in this era of AI?
Absolutely. And I think that's a brilliant question right there, Shelly, because one thing we will all definitely agree, almost violently agree, is AI is rapidly transforming the way humans perceive the ecosystem around us, the user experience, and how business decision-making processes they've always been data driven, but then the way it is consumed and interacted with has definitely changed.
Yeah.
So I would say interactions and the core integrations with all the players, it's definitely become a lot more conversational and agentic, right? And I would say it's to a point that we should probably start embracing the fact that software platforms, are likely to become more headless, allowing for
Yes.
massive scales of security and scalability. Scalability is also a key concern that definitely AI will help us unlock for. And to that point, when business decisions, the underpinnings is data for sure. The more that you can tap into those reservoirs of data, the better it is, right? And that has been the core approach that we've always adapted to, coming from Commvault, where yes, we protect your data, make sure that it's ready for recovery, kind of a notion. But how do we make sure that businesses can activate that data or put it to greater use while it is in a wait mode or a standby mode? And in all of this, I would say that definitely back to the point that how AI has become all pervasive today. And in all of that, I would say it has democratized access to such a degree that malicious actors also have just about as much access to AI as much as legitimate businesses do. So, which kind of puts us in a very, I would say, prepare for action kind of a mode, because cyber attacks are expected to grow exponentially.
Right.
And not just that, they are likely to be a lot more automated, more signatureless, more polymorphic in nature. So when you have malicious actors evolving with the aid of AI by their side, it's only natural that the defense mechanisms, the recovery mechanisms, and the reliance mechanisms also adopt and adapt to that same strategy where AI is foundational to how businesses leverage it, right?
Right.
So, in my view, I think it's the coming together of maximizing the value of data, going beyond just protecting, in terms of activating the true business value of that.
Right. Right. Well, and that's what we're going to talk about next. I wanted to kind of dive deeper into Commvault's data rooms, which I know are designed to help enterprises sort of unlock that value in backup data and turning something that was maybe once kind of dormant into an active AI asset. So tell me, Vidya, from your perspective, how are you seeing customers rethink the role of backup data in this age of Gen AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as cliched as it might sound, but data has always been the new currency or the new oil, right?
Yeah.
But then again, customers should not have to go mining far out to extract meaningful information out of that data.
Yeah.
So, in my view, and this is something that we are seeing over and over again, that if we are able to activate the business value of the protected repositories, it automatically solves for the front of funnel problem that AI pipelines have today. So it actually automatically reduces the heavy lift that teams have to otherwise perform in terms of discovering, preparing, and
Right.
of course exporting, so that it is now more business consumable from an AI perspective, right? So it's not necessary that you always have to tap the front end, the production landscape to train your LLMs. What if we could activate the repositories that you are already responsible for or that you're already housing today, to maximize your ROI in what you have under the hood?
Right.
So definitely, I think this the whole premise of having data rooms brought forward, it helps reduce time to overall business insights, while supporting. Here's the important piece, because we tend to kind of go overboard and commit to things that it's just the inside part. But with Commvault data rooms, what we're also able to bring forward is the support for compliance while maintaining the trust on that data that we are already housing. So I think there's a lot of goodness that can be definitely leveraged and tapped into with this repository.
Yeah, absolutely. That compliance part of it's a very big deal.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So, to your point that you made earlier, cyber resilience used to mean being able to recover quickly after an incident. But as you said, and I say this all the time as well, really kind of ad nauseum, but, as excited as all of us are about embracing AI throughout our organizations, large and small, and experimenting and just seeing how we can use AI to perhaps produce better work product, or to be able to deal with more banal, mundane things, and be able to focus on more high value tasks, all that sort of thing. But the reality of it is, just as excited as we are about the use cases for AI, cyber threat actors have great incentivization, because the more quickly they master this, the more financial rewards or chaos they are able to strew.
Mhm.
And so, of course, they're embracing it at a very rapid pace, and what they are able to use AI for, and Gen AI in particular, is it used to be, if you got a spam email or a text message, a lot of times you could kind of tell that it was coming from a person for whom English was not their
Mhm.
first language. And so it wasn't easy, but if you were paying attention, you could kind of pick out what those were. And Gen AI helps them be great writers and sound wonderful. So it is really interesting. And so today, as I said at the beginning, cyber resilience is really no longer about just being able to recover. Today, it's about being ready and being proactive
Mhm.
and being able to be predictive and intelligent. And so I know this is something that you and the Commvault team spend much time thinking about. Talk with me, if you would, Vidya, about how Commvault is helping organizations move from that reactive recovery mindset and action plan to this more anticipatory model of resilience.
I love the phrasing here, Shelly, which is anticipatory model of
Yeah,
resilience, because again, the way we've always thought of how businesses should be looking at resilience in itself is, I would say, a healthy mix of proactive and reactive phases.
right,
And definitely within the proactive and predictive and reactive phases, I would say, let me break this down into three different parts, right? From the predictive side of things, yes, Commvault has been actively expanding its ecosystem integration players,
right,
because to your point, it definitely lends itself to the fact that we need a strong, reliable, trustworthy ecosystem to bank upon as businesses.
right.
So, just so that you are at least a curb ahead, a step ahead of the malicious actors. So,
Mhm.
being able to have that superpower almost of being able to predict where the attack is likely to come from, or what kind of threat vectors are out there that could potentially wreak havoc within your environment. That is a massively differentiated starting point.
Yeah,
And of course, apart from some of the built-in capabilities within Commvault's platform, we are constantly looking at integrating with those ecosystem players, because it's that, I would almost call it a mesh of players that can definitely elevate the predictive intelligence that a business can benefit from.
Right.
Now, taking that predictive intel and baking it into the proactive stages or proactive steps. So, what would you do to ensure that the business is proactive and preemptive in its approach? So, making sure that you're adopting zero trust architecture. Now, that is, I would say, it's table stakes. It's not a differentiator anymore.
Right.
As a business, we are expected to have that security stance. And at the same time, when we talk about zero trust architecture, we are talking about also ensuring that every piece of that landscape, IT landscape, is hardened, right? And
Right.
making sure it is defense and layers philosophy that we are adopting so that we make it that much harder for malicious actors to get into further and deeper into an environment to probably end up with a scorched earth kind of a situation, right?
Right.
So that is where the proactive stance comes in, but it doesn't stop there. That further gets elevated into kind of making sure you have tight processes that ensure that the people responsible for responding to that kind of crisis are able to build muscle memory,
Right.
right? So having a clean room environment that can be spun up and spun down, making sure that you are iterating on your cyber resilience plan, cyber resilience runbook as you make your way through the proactive cycles of
Right.
testing and validation. Those are equally important stages.
Yeah.
And of course, the final pillar, which is the reactive, right? In spite of best intentions laid out, there are organizations that are falling victim to a cyber attack.
Right.
So, in such cases, all the processes that you've laid out already are massive value additions in the business's ability to respond effectively. That is the point where you wouldn't expect the business to just get started in identifying their gaps. That is not the place you want to learn those things.
No.
The reactive stages where you have the capability like what Commvault offers with threat scanning to be able to get to a clean point in time of recovery, just so that you have the peace of mind as you recover into a clean room that it is less contaminated, and by the time you bless that data and move it into production, you're able to minimize the risk of reinfection significantly.
Right.
That is a massive value addition to a business because they definitely don't have the luxury of time to go through those throes of operations all over again.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I love it. Now I want to talk about something, Vidya, that is one of my very favorite things about what I see happening right now across the business and AI landscape, and this is conversational solutions. So your launch of Commvault's conversational interface was a fascinating step forward, making resilience available through natural language. What has been the response from enterprise customers using this so far? And a second part to this question is, how do you see AI-driven conversation changing how security and AI teams interact with their environments? And I will tell you before you answer that the reason I'm so excited about it is that I spend a lot of my time surrounded by developers and other data nerds. And the idea of being able to use AI powered solutions conversationally is so wonderful and so exciting for so many people. So I'm going to go step back here and say, so what has been the response from your enterprise customers about this launch of the conversational interface? Let's start there.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. This has been such a powerful direction that Commvault's taken that it's seeing a lot of positive response coming from our
Yeah.
customer base. And to your point, the fact that you're now able to have that natural language interaction for something as critical as data protection has definitely given a lot of transparency to how businesses look at resilience and resilience associated
Right.
activities today. And I would say the fact that you're also lending itself through the conversational AIPs with simplicity woven in while making sure that it definitely has the guardrails of a policy-driven automation,
Right.
is exactly what the enterprise space our customers are actually looking for.
Yeah.
Because whether we like it or not, it definitely reduces a significant amount in terms of cognitive burden. There's
Yeah.
less manual querying, there is less scope for human error, there is faster time to investigation and response because now you're able to ingest logs and
Right.
summarize findings that much more rapidly. So I think there's a lot of value that the customers will definitely get with this capability, because it helps strike the right balance between having the robustness of an automation workflow while maintaining trust and transparency and accountability.
Yeah. How I look at it also, Vidya, is that it's kind of a personification here of the human machine connection. And what I mean is, many of us are accustomed to sitting in front of our devices, whatever those devices may be, on a regular basis, and making things happen with our fingers, right? And with queries and typing and coding and whatever it is we're doing. And so the move to conversational capabilities deepens, in my opinion, our relationship with those devices and the technology with which we are interacting.
Mhm.
And it kind of makes those relationships maybe more multifaceted, if you will. And I think about, I use a bunch of different Gen AI platforms, whether it's Claude happens to be one of my favorites. But, it's funny, I watch my relationship with Claude and
Mhm.
I laugh because I'll be like, hi, I'm looking to create this or whatever. And then I'll get a result and it'll be perfect. Well, that's almost what I'm looking for. But what about if we did, you know what I'm saying? And I'm
Yeah.
talking to this Gen AI as if it were a coworker or a person. And
Mhm.
I'm not doing that by voice right now. But I think that this really is kind of a look at this is not our future, this is our present. And
Mhm.
the role that conversation is playing in the work that we do, I think, is really fascinating to watch evolve.
I think you make a very beautiful point there, Shelley. I would say that especially with Gen AI interfaces, when you're trying to drive business outcomes, if that interface is is more understandable and you feel more understood,
Yeah.
I think the outcome is definitely something a lot more positive,
Yeah.
right? And I love what you just mentioned in terms of the humanized interactions that you're having now with otherwise what would have been a very cold interface.
Yeah.
But this has definitely made the outputs a lot more relatable, and it's not just with the interface that you're interacting with, but even across various lines of businesses. I
Yeah.
think this definitely promotes better communication, better channels of interaction, and I would say uh, collaboration even, right? Because it's less a notion of just sharing or a bunch of reports, but there
Yeah.
is a added facet of context that can be shared across the lines of businesses.
Right. Right. It's an interesting time. And like I said, the conversational part of all of this is
Mhm.
really, really exciting for me. So, Vidya, we're entering a world where, we started our conversation on this front, data, right? And we are in a world where, the AI outcomes that we get are only as good as the data foundation beneath them rather. And, the whole garbage in, garbage out descriptor could not be more applicable here. So, talk with me about how Commvault is working with organizations to not only help secure their data, but also to help make it trustworthy and clean and AI ready so that it can actually deliver the kind of impact that companies are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the very premise that your AI outcomes, to your point, garbage in, garbage out, is extremely relevant and true. And that is where having Commvault with its underpinnings on immutable, indelible data repositories automatically have that natural extension into making sure that you are able to feed a more reliable repository of data that is governed upfront and obviously governed at the back end as well, so that as AI pipelines ingest that data, there is a greater degree of peace of mind that is lent to it, because
Yeah.
you are automatically inheriting the same levels of guardrails and governance and compliance with which the data was even brought to the protection repositories.
Right.
So, from that perspective, I think from a securing perspective, right up to being able to cater up the trusted, clean repository, having capabilities like threat scanning abilities as you deliver data up into a clean room, all of these elements automatically kind of have that yin yang kind of a relationship going that ensures that garbage in garbage out kind of challenges are nipped in the bud to a
Yeah.
large degree.
Yeah. Well, that's what we need. That's what we need. So let's talk a little bit about, we touched on the platform, the shift to platform and platform experiences earlier. But, one of the themes that I see emerging, Vidya, is the convergence of disciplines that were once separate things. Backup was over here, data management was over here, cybersecurity was over here, and now we've got AI enablement. But the reality of it is, in order to really get significant benefit from these things, we can't have them all be separate disciplines. And
Mhm.
so talk with me a little bit, and that's really where the whole platformization movement that we're in the midst of is happening is so relevant. So talk with us a little bit, if you would, about how Commvault is bringing these things together in
Mhm.
a unified platform experience.
100%, Shelly, because I think to your point, it was what was considered extremely disparate sets of
Yeah.
capabilities. When the underpinning is data, when everything is data, and you and I are both data nerds, and I'm sure we have an equal appreciation for the fact that as long as there is a platform that can stitch all of these facets together, from protection to management to security, and now taking all the goodness of what you've already protected and feeding it into AI in terms of AI enablement, all of these actually have that collapsed view of everything and anything to do with data at large.
Right.
So, in my view, what Commvault, with all its capabilities, we've been around for about 28 plus years now, and data has been the core of why we are even in existence, right?
Right.
So, from a time that protected repositories were considered an insurance policy, it sure still is, but now we are seeing a strong emergence of active data fabric coming off of it,
Yeah.
right? So this unified single pane of glass, I know that phrase gets a lot of attention, but that is
Yeah.
truly a value driver, because to your point, when all these disparate capabilities are now made available to a consumer, it has to be from a single dashboard. Otherwise, the experience will never be seamless, right?
Right. Right.
So, from that perspective, what was considered how fast I can recover or how fast my business can recover, to what is my ability to showcase ROI or yield of my data that is already under protection,
Right.
the value is massive,
Right.
because that unified experience automatically multiplies the value of what they have today.
Right. Well, speaking of value, I wanted to dig a little bit deeper on that front. We've talked about sort of the hidden operational and financial value in making backup data accessible for secondary use cases. And that could be anything from compliance audits to model training and beyond. So how do you see customers quantifying that value? And are there any new business models that you think this might unlock?
So that's such an interesting question, Shelley. And I would say these are exclusively my views on things, because um, definitely because of the kind of amplification that we are expecting with this unified platform model, customers will definitely start looking at the value that they can get from their data in a different lens of things. Typically the value is, like I mentioned, the overall reduction in risk and also save time. But the new shift is, what new insights am I able to glean out of it? What new patterns am I seeing that I may have missed while the data is being ingested? This also allows for a new era where we are probably heading towards something that says in the realm of data yield, reuse yield model, because it becomes less a notion of can I bounce back and more a notion of what is the value multiplier I can get from the data that I already have? How can
Right.
I contextualize it and make it more meaningful and maximizing my ROI within the scheme of things that I already have?
Right.
So I would say one is to hit the ground running with the ability to bounce back. That is foundational. There are no compromises. That's not going to change. But the delta incremental value is the data reuse yield. And that is more measured in terms of what is the value that they can extend back to consumers of their end users. So, for example, if it is a retail environment, probably they would be able to slash the costs of their products on the shelves because they have a better view of how they are reutilizing what they already have. So, in my view, it will definitely have a cascading impact, not necessarily in terms of how we view things today, which is, recoverability or mean time to clean room.
Right.
There's definite business shifts that we can expect. But like I said, it's entirely my view that I'm voicing here.
Well, I like hearing your view. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about cyber resilience. And, where we are today is, we are literally, we talked about this at the beginning of a conversation, at the intersection of AI and cyber resilience, and lots of change is going on. As we head into a new year, which is unbelievably in, I don't know, about 6 weeks. So as we head into 2026 and beyond, what excites you the most, if you can even narrow it down, about this intersection of AI and cyber resilience that I know you spend every day swimming in?
That is true, and that's such an interesting, perspective as well, right? When we are bringing in two very leading facets of technological evolution, which is cyber resilience and AI, into the same room for discussion, I think the permutation combinations in terms of value is definitely manifold. And what I mean by that is suddenly you're able to see how the entire space, the entire world of AI, agentic and conversational, is turning the very notion of resilience on its head.
Yes.
So whether it is the conversational AI interface that we are expecting that we have today, or the more advanced nature of agentic multiverse or multi-universe that I fondly call it, with multiple agents working in close concert with each other, looking to achieve the cyber resilience goal at large. So those are things that I would definitely watch very closely for, because this is an evolving space.
Yeah.
And it's rapidly evolving. In fact, to your point, just last week we were in conversations with a customer that was just in the process of identifying what truly matters to them from a cyber resilience perspective.
Right.
And early this week, the conversation had accelerated to a point that they are looking at having the agentic world kick in, so that there is more robustness of automation, with, of course, with due regard for security front and center. So this is a very interesting space that we would definitely watch closely and see how it emerges, because every day is a new day. We are learning and evolving rapidly. And I would say probably what I've said right here is already obsolete and outdated by the time I move on to the next hour of today.
Yes, and this is where I step back and I think about, it has always felt like, especially the technology space has evolved very quickly, but today it's evolving at a pace that is even astonishing to those of us who are immersed in it. And I find myself always incredibly grateful that I am wired in such a way. And I also believe that I think there are things about yourself you can change, but I think there's some fundamental things that you kind of get what you get in terms of the cards that you're dealt. And one of the cards that I've been dealt is that I love change. And so I'm incredibly adaptable. I'm incredibly optimistic that change leads to good things. And I'm always the first person who's willing to go, let's give it a try. And that doesn't make me incredibly special, but what this kind of wiring, if you will, is really that it is optimum for the workplace from moving forward. And so people and we human beings do not inherently love change, generally speaking. So I've always been an outlier on that front. But I think that, to your point about something that you talked about an hour ago may already be obsolete. And so I think that really understanding that and accepting this rapid change, and, to your point about a customer talking about one thing one day and a few days later already ready to do something else. I mean, I think that we are seeing decisions made so much more rapidly than we've ever seen them before. And that same customer who might have taken 6 or 8 or 9 months to make a decision about doing something that you have been talking with them about, it is not unusual these days to see them come back in a week or 2 weeks and say, I'm ready to go. So I think it's really an interesting time, both to be a vendor and to be an analyst, but also to be a customer and to navigate these quickly moving waters.
Absolutely. Well said, Shelly.
All right, Vidya, as we wrap this episode, I have one last question, and that is, what advice do you have for enterprises that want to lead, not follow, in this next phase of intelligent data protection?
Oh, that's a fantastic point there, Shelly. And I would say that for enterprises, definitely they are at the precipice of something extremely unique. And we are literally building the bridge as we are crossing the chasm. So, in that perspective, I would say your technology vendors are your partners. I would definitely encourage the enterprise space to leverage the vendor ecosystem to ensure that they have a robust roadmap that aligns with your business criteria, business vision that you're looking to achieve. Because definitely this is a space that's strongly evolving, rapidly evolving.
Right.
So, ensuring that the vendors have a strong roadmap that aligns with resilience, cyber protection, and AI adoption, responsible AI adoption. These are absolutely untenable, non-negotiable parameters.
Right.
And working closely with them that would definitely stand them in good stead, because there is no right or wrong answer. Everything is tailorable that fits the business requirements, but it has to meet the basic standards of ethical adoption of technology at large. So that would be my 2 cents.
I love it. Those are some great 2 cents. And that's a wrap for this episode of Security Square. Thanks so much to my guest, Vidya Shankaran, who's the field CTO for cloud security and emerging technology at Commvault, for joining me today. If you are headed to Commvault Shift event in New York City next week, Vidya and I will both be there. So definitely look for us. We'd love to see you. And with that, I'm your host, Shelly Kramer. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you next time.